The future is vegan.
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 Hi everyone, it's Jessica and welcome to the newest episode of Jessica Talks Veganism, or my submission for my AP Environmental Science project. In this episode titled Eating for Our Planet, I'll be delving into some real-life examples of how your diet impacts the planet in a sustainable and ethical take. So in this episode, we'll be looking over the consumer's actions. So I'm going to show my viewers how to choose more environmentally sustainable meat products, dairy products, with friendlier alternatives on the market. Not only will this documentary feature an environmental, but also a moral justification for the way that we eat. So this documentary and this podcast is all about transparency and in the thing that we need the most to carry us through our everyday actions, fuel. So let's run through some objectives for today's episode. So our introductions and our hook. So we'll reel in with a shock factor, the dollar voting analogy, and a connection to AP Environmental Science. Next, we have why do we rely on dairy products and a reality check on America's dairy dependency. Next, we have all about the dairy industry choosing sustainable plant-based milks, and my favorite here. Next, we have sexism and anti-feminism with the dairy industry, all about the meat industry, which meats are better for you and the environment, how to select healthier lean meats and organic meats, debunking dairy and meat industry myths, cage-free and free-range poultry. And then we're going to cover the irony of certified humane and animal welfare approved seals and their relation with Seaspiracy. Also, there's harmful USDA Tom Vilsack and his disproportionate funding and pink slime controversy. And then I'm going to end off with a little bit of my solution, implementing a Meatless Monday and switching to more plant-based milks. So let's get to it. Okay, so first we have our introduction and hook into the documentary. So first, as we know, in Unit 0 of Chapter 1, a transition in human attitudes will lead to a better future by 2065. So according to Animal Clock, since the start of 2021, over 11 billion animals have been killed in the food for the United States alone. This metric fails to consider most regions of the world, and if we continue consuming animals at this rate, we can only expect our climate crisis to worsen. According to Poor and Nemsek, half of our total animal emissions are related to lamb and beef consumption. If we reduce our meat consumption from beefs and red meats, the IPCC, or Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, predicts that we can lessen our climate change impacts. So more benefits include improved topsoil and water conservation. So reducing overall meat consumption can lead to improved benefits, health benefits especially, reduced stroke risks, heart disease, and high blood pressure. So in AP Environmental Science, we focus on the benefits of and the impacts, I guess, of the meat industry and its production. So in this video, I'll be exploring both the dairy and beef industries as they are directly correlated and interlocked with one another. So with correlation to the dollar voting analogy, in a capitalist society, we vote with our dollars. So let's take a look into the power of the consumer. How do our dollars impact the industries we support and the decisions we're making? So let's start off with where it means most, fuel. So why do we vouch for dairy products? Let's start at this. So to understand the dairy industry, we have to start at its roots. So dairy products, as we know, are a great source of calcium, and for these reasons, the NIH, as we know, with an ongoing history of animal cruelty, and the USDA endorse these products. Calcium products, as we know, are rich in vitamin B1, vitamin A, vitamin B6, selenium, zinc, and magnesium. So although these are nice, to reap the benefits of calcium from the dairy products, you need to consume 2 to 3 servings of dairy products a day. So this isn't very hard, from cereals to recipes. It's not much of a hard deal, I guess. But we need to consider the dependency, America's dependency on dairy is interlocked with the USDA's promotion of this. And there's no reason, no weird reason why the USDA supports dairy consumption. I mean, to begin with, the representative of the USDA, or United States Department of Agriculture, is Tom Vilsack, and he is the head of the Dairy Council. So this creates an interlocking between the government and these industries and dairy products. This is also similar with the church and the state situation. So The caloric makeup in general of dairy products are pretty fair, and organic dairy products are better options to vouch for if you choose to pursue dairy products. And they're found to contain higher concentrations of omega-3 fatty acids and fat-soluble vitamins. So from what we can understand, Americans' reliance on dairy products and human beings in general is really related to dietary and nutritional needs. But what if I told you that consuming dairy products is unnatural, to say the least? Certified RD, Delilah Basasi, confirms that consuming more dairy products is directly linked with a higher risk of developing bone fractures, which sounds really bad. So dairy products, more specifically, were not made for us. They were made for the baby calf from the heifer, expected to quintuple their weight in a matter of weeks. Not months, weeks. And for instance, I read this amazing post from Natalie Falco, an incredible vegan athlete, that says that dairy products help calves go from 65 pounds to 700 pounds in a matter of months, which is crazy. So dairy products are also rooted in institutionalized racism. So how so? So approximately 75% of African Americans are lactose intolerant, and lactose is a sugar found in dairy. And oftentimes, a dairy is promoted to these communities exclusively. So despite the considerable health problems that come from dairy, especially, they are still promoted in these quantities. So to answer the question, a lot of us justify our consumption with dairy with the trivial and incomparable benefits to otherwise choosing plant-based alternatives. So oat milk is the best plant-based milk on the market. I know this opens up a huge debate, but it uses the least amount of water and is the most environmentally sustainable option. Oat milk can also help you combat environmental and ethical considerations of your diet. So next, let's talk all about the dairy industry and choosing plant-based milks, as we know. So let's talk about the dairy industry a little bit. As we know from Delilah Basasi, that consuming dairy products is directly linked with a higher risk of developing bone fractures. But choosing oat products are directly found to contain more protein per serving without putting heifers or female cows under stress. So if a cow gives birth to a female cow, also known as a heifer, she remains at the farm until she can no longer produce milk, then sent to be slaughtered at the slaughterhouse, I guess. But if the cow gives birth to a male cow, also known as a bull, they offer no benefit to the dairy industries and are then carried off to be slaughtered for veal or beef. So cows are guinea pigs to many new drugs in the market, and to help them gain weight, plump in size, and for these reasons, humans can develop an antibiotic resistance to tetracycline and penicillin. So once the female is no longer beneficial to the dairy industry, she's electrically stunned or shot to death. This industry is merciless. So next we also have talking a little bit about oat milk. As we know, it's more environmentally sustainable, and I would recommend oat milk over almond milk because almond milk uses 17 times more water than cow milk production per liter, according to a study. And this way you can feel better about both your ethical and environmental choices. So although don't be misguided with this statement, when choosing plant-based milks, almond milk is still comparably more nutrient-dense than traditional milk because it combats a lot of environmental factors in your diet. For instance, it's more nutrient dense and it uses significantly less water than a typical dairy-oriented lifestyle would. And typically, these statistics for plant-based milks are reported 2,400 times higher than they usually are, according to a study, than their true ratios of water needed to produce the product per liter. So here are some of my favorite alternatives and why. The first alternative is organic almond milk. Like, come on, Jessica, you just promoted oat milk and you're using almond milk. But this product is incredible. So this has approximately 10 grams of protein per serving with a healthy caloric makeup and has biodegradable packaging. I believe cardboard is biodegradable for the most extent, I guess. So Orgain famously is an incredible company because they joined with the incredible Whole Kids Foundation to make cleaner nutrition available to poverty-stricken areas and neighborhoods. So they are donating 5% of their total profits from September to August period to help these to help spread plant-based and clean nutrition to other neighborhoods. So this will raise more than $50,000, which is incredible. Meanwhile, dairy initiatives such as Fairlife are doing the exact opposite, obviously bought out by Coca-Cola. They are being sued for their fraudulent promise of extraordinary care and comfort of dairy and animals in facility. So many videos and clips have brought to light the lies of the dairy industry. I also recommend oat milk for environmental reasons, as I said before. It can be found in many different varieties. You can find chocolate oat milk and even vanilla oat milk. I love chocolate almond milks, especially after practice. They are a great way to kind of take back a little bit of the caloric burns, I guess. So I also recommend Elmhurst Products. They're the only natural flavor-free option at Whole Foods found to contain harmful enzymes. So Elmhurst Products are also completely biodegradable packaging and swear it promises sustainability, which is something we want to look for when looking for products. So plant-based milks are our future. So for dairy products such as cheese, yogurts, desserts, you can find an equal substitute of each. There are no excuses. So there's vegan cream cheese. I use this every day on bagels. Vegan butter, awesome dairy-free yogurts. This is incredible. I had this yesterday. It's coconut milk, yogurt alternative, and vanilla. It tastes exactly like traditional vanilla yogurt, but it doesn't come with the side of cruelty. And there's, they come in every flavor imaginable, lots of different vegan desserts. Ben & Jerry's has a dairy-free option. There's protein halo top ice cream and those addicting ice cream bars at Whole Foods. So let's talk a little bit about sexism and anti-feminism in the dairy industry. So the dairy industry is rooted in sexism. So the dairy industry is anti-feminist, and this is because they artificially inseminate cows to reach the human demand. According to Alfred Marshall's law of supply and demand, as we know, a lot of these farmers and workers in these conditions for the dairy industry are paid by the volume. So the more, cows they can exploit, the more milk they can produce, the more they are paid subsequently. So in this manner, the conditions in which the animals are raised, the conditions in which these foods are processed is going to go down. The quality goes down with the volume of food produced, of course. And so this is something to keep in mind. So next we're going to talk all about the dairy industry. So which meats are better for you? So I love pushing, even though I'm a vegan blogger, animal rights activist, I don't push veganism to everybody. It's not ready for everybody at the moment. I wrote an article about this and need awareness that, people struggling with eating disorders and subsequent disorders, this is not a step ready for them. And there are small changes you can make, even when going from a completely omni diet to a vegan diet, that you can use to implement a more sustainable lifestyle, reduce your carbon footprint, and take back a little bit of the ecological deficit that we've created. Okay, so let's get to it. So for one, poultry makes up the most environmentally sustainable meats, if you really want to go into this. So turkey and chicken do not produce methane, and they require less food and water to larger livestock like sheep and cows. So when looking to buy poultry, look for antibiotic-free breasts as well as certified organic products. So organic meats are richer, as we know before, in dairy products are richer in omega-3 fatty acids, a healthier fat compared to trans fats or saturated fats. And then there's also there's more nutrient density in the food you're eating, and when you choose organic products, there's a lower exposure to growth hormones and pesticides. As we know from the APES Unit 9 detailing the HRFI mnemonic, the 4 different pesticides can truly wreak havoc upon our bodies. So these products and choosing these alternatives, even when choosing meat or dairy products, can really help us in a nutrient sense. So next we're going to talk about how to select healthier lean meats or organic meats. So I would recommend choosing poultry for the provided dietary benefits. So you can cut down on red meat and beef consumption as the IPCC recommends, and they are the greatest contributors to climate change and animal agriculture emissions. So you want to ideally look for products with a higher lean tissue to fat ratio. So this means that you're going to find products with less fat on them, less fat trimmings, and ideally, you want to look for keep meat in moderation, as it is higher in saturated fats on a health basis. And the second worst fat we can consume, the worst fat is typically trans fats. So when looking to buy poultry, look for antibiotic-free breast and organic. So that's some of my tips. So debunking dairy and meat industry myths. So there's a common misconception about cage-free meat and egg products. So cage-free meat and dairy products, I guess. But cage-free does not mean that the animals live a long, free-range lifestyle. This is completely opposite. This simply means that they're confined to a larger cage or in a facility they're with hundreds and, in most cases, thousands of other animals in crammed living quarters, I guess. So choosing the cage-free option, as we know, also comes with a side of cruelty. Choosing the cage-free option when they're confined to large open pens, I guess, confine them to mutilation from their owners to minimize damage caused to one another and to prevent disease, I guess. So another common misconception is the notion of free-range poultry. You may think similarly to the cage-free philosophy, and this is exactly what the USDA wants you to believe. However, around 99.9% of chickens raised for beef in the United States alone are raised in animal agriculture conditions or factory farm conditions. So your average farmer could have up to 20,000 chickens at once. So next we're going to talk a little bit about the irony in certified humane and animal welfare approved seals. So I would like to bring to light the seal of animal welfare approved or certified humane. I don't understand what is so humane about taking the life of another animal in the name of nutrition or to satisfy taste. It really never made sense to me when there are so many of alternatives on the market. You know, even for Girl Scouts, I've seen this amazing initiative where they replace palm oil. They're boycotting Girl Scout products because of palm oil. You can find this option. It's vegan, friendlier, and it doesn't have palm oil. You can always make a change in the products that you buy and vote with your dollars, as we know from the dollar voting analogy. So this is a great option. It tastes even better than dairy milk, in my opinion, from before I was vegan. And this product is a great substitute for yogurts. So there really is no excuse. So I like to take situations into perspective. So let's say I'm sitting down with my family, I'm hungry, and it's dinner time. I choose a lean meat option because I want to get a higher lean meat to fat ratio for the health benefits. So the 200 calories of meat in front of me, that was a life that was not worth the 3 hours of energy it would provide me. 3 hours of energy, then snap, I'm hungry again. So this is not something that I want. And 3 hours over a lifetime of cruelty will never make sense to me. It's never justified. And these seals are identical to the sustainable fishing seals seen in Seaspiracy. So the certified humane and animal welfare approved go on the basis of what is established of animal welfare conditions. So for instance, the pledges grant each hen 1.8 square feet of indoor space. In perspective to my 1.5 foot American girl, though, that's nothing. So I want to see genuinely, what do they consider an inhumane condition or inhumane conditions of living? That's really inhumane. So the next thing I want to talk about is USDA Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack. I don't have any prejudice against him personally, but I think the motives that he stands for, the motifs, are absolutely heartbreaking. So I remember urging a lot of my viewers and followers when the time came for re-election not to vote for Vilsack when coming into office. Vilsack is tied directly with the dairy industry, the Dairy Council, and Tom Vilsack deteriorated our country under President Obama for 8 years with animal agriculture. So Tom Vilsack is our agriculture secretary in the moment, or really the brains behind the USDA. So as I said before, I don't really have a prejudice against him, but the better candidate that I was urging for, and a lot of other people, was Marcia Fudge. So she was pushed into a different position, but Tom Vilsack was pushed into the USDA position. So Vilsack does not only violate humane promises of the USDA, but encourage the sale of pink slime. Pink slime is horrific. It's basically leftover flesh from slaughtered cows as a potential food source. He promoted it as a potential food source for schools and consumers. That's incredibly unhealthy, and it sounds disgusting, for one, I guess. But not only is Vilsack accused of these horrible, unhealthy conditions in schools and, in our daily environments, but he is also wrongfully discriminated against Black farmers. Specifically in his re-election campaign, Vilsack promised that he would direct a lot of the funding towards Black farmers. He would give them more of a chance in the marketplace. But what proved during his term was that he disproportionately funded more money to the white farmer compared to the Black farmer. So this completely went against what he said, and third-party organizations have also been found to pay off the USDA to satisfy, as we know, these humane seals or these conducts of proper animal welfare. So next we have a little bit about my solution to this. So my solution to the climate crisis is implementing a Meatless Monday and choosing plant-based milks. I think that this is a great solution because we don't have to, as consumers, we're used to the Omni diet, choosing one day out of the month to choose kindness, choose compassion on our meal. This is an easy and kind of a constructive way to approach the crisis. And even on one day, we can make such a huge change in the ecological footprints that we have, and even choosing plant-based milks will have such more of a benefit on our health, speaking on that scale. So this is putting in conjunction a Meatless Monday with plant-based milks. A a dairy-free milk is a very easy swap to make. Instead of choosing the milk on the shelf, you can choose almond milk, for example. It tastes the same. You can choose options on there that are equally superior in flavor, I guess. So this is not a hard transition to make. So although meat, as we know, such as beef and lamb, offer populations a rich and accessible protein source, moderating our consumption can mitigate some of these effects. Surely, even as an activist, I think it would be incredible to have everybody go vegan, vegetarian, but this is unrealistic for the grand majority of our population and a solution to our climate crisis. Instead, practicing a principle of moderation, for instance, principle STB1, with a Meatless Monday or reducing meat consumption could mitigate these effects. So Meatless Monday could reduce our climate change impact by reducing our carbon footprints and conserving environmental resources. So according to the Humane Society's predictions, this would save an average of 3.5 animals per person per year. This is crazy. When you multiply this by the U.S. population, this would save over 1.4 billion animals per year. Many people would argue that going completely vegan is the way to go. I would agree with this, and I really do as a vegan activist, but I don't think it's realistic. But this is because we live in a food oasis society, and many geological areas, called food deserts, I guess, do not have access to these nutritious, merciful counterparts. We learn about this more in depth within Chapter 12. But for the time being, I'm excited to show you guys my Socratic Seminar that I had the incredible opportunity to speak with many incredible activists, and we discussed the Meatless Monday, the vegan controversy, and a lot of important factors in creating a teenage solution and, a youth-oriented take on the climate crisis. So let's get to it. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.
So let's get to it. So for this meeting, SOS, Socratic Seminar, we're going to propose student solutions to the climate crisis. So let's get into it, I guess. So for Socratic Seminar Basic Etiquette, it's pretty simple. So we speak so everyone can hear, listen closely to everyone, and you can unmute. You don't have to raise your hand. You can use the chat if you want. Address all comments to the group. You can just chat with one another. If two people unmute at the same time, then you can just say oh, I'll speak first or something. Make sure to speak up. I don't think anybody here has a problem of monopolization and conversations. There's no pressure. All thoughts are awesome, and be passionate in your thinking, and don't be afraid to side with somebody else, and ask for clarification whenever needed. Okay. So for our first question, we have, why should a small temperature change be of such importance or concern, especially with climate change? So do you guys have any opinions on that?
I can start this question off. Hi, everyone. So for me, I think that from what I know, the Earth stays at a pretty solid 58 degrees, and that's just globally. But as time has gone on, we have seen some rise within this temperature, and that's very bad because kind of with the Earth, any sudden change can be very drastic. So we know sea level rise, we know with climate change, all those things can kind of just become sporadic once the Earth's temperature kind of rises, and that can have a lot of negative impacts on our planet.
Oh, that's so cool. Thank you so much for sharing. Does anybody else have any other ideas on climate change? Okay, if we don't have any questions on this one, we could go on to the next slide. My slide's a little jumpy today. I will pull it up right now. 3, 4 here. So what are some things that we can do to limit or decrease our carbon footprint, or for the average consumer, I guess? So I have this factors chart over here. Oh my, that makes up our carbon footprint. So food, transportation, other things. So if you guys have any ideas, then I'd really like to hear them.
Food would definitely make up a big part, because especially when you look a lot into veganism and even just vegetarianism, you can see how much of a carbon footprint you're leaving just by what you eat. With the Amazon rainforest being destroyed to let animals graze, that kind of stuff. Just by your food, you're having quite a large carbon footprint. So one thing that you can do for multiple good reasons, but also to help reduce your carbon footprint would be veganism and vegetarianism.
Yeah, definitely. Have any of you guys tried like low waste or something like that on top of veganism? I recently started something similar to it, so I'm trying to go like as low waste as possible.
Yeah, so like metal straws and like reducing like your plastic and stuff like that. Yeah, I agree.
You can also, I think you're all right, but it can also be simple decisions like choosing not to use a straw instead at a restaurant, or choosing the paper option instead of the plastic option, or just stuff like that. If you have the option of like paper versus plastic, that kind of stuff, it's sometimes simple little actions you can make.
Hi, Hope. Thanks for joining us. So we're just getting into one of the first questions are what are some things that like the average consumer can do to decrease our carbon footprint? If you have any ideas, just feel free to share. You can always unmute and, we'd love to hear your thoughts.
I think people, wait, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I think people can use electric cars because I think that makes a very big difference, and the market's growing a lot as more companies realize people want to do it. Like Ford, I think, and General Motors said that they were going to go all electric by like 2025 or something. Yeah, it's like something like that.
One of the more obvious things that I don't think anybody has stated was like reduce, reuse, recycle. We can, even if it's somewhat harder, like in my house, my family doesn't want to recycle because it costs more to add it onto our trash plan. So even if you can't, you can recycle, but then you can also reduce and reuse. So reusing jars, spaghetti sauce jars, that kind of stuff. So it is something that you hear a lot, but it is really can help is reduce, reuse, and recycle as much as you can.
Yeah, definitely. I can move on to the next slide to see what we have next. Okay, perfect. So this is the makeup over here of like the US carbon emissions. From like pointing it out in like a thought or two, do you guys have any ideas of like what this could like say about like a possible solution or what our problem currently is with why our like carbon footprints are so high?
Veganism. Well, the solution could be veganism, but definitely we're looking at it and we see that the other category is only the other grain products, fruit, and vegetables category is less than 10% of the entire makeup, which is what vegans would be consuming. And then the rest of it is eggs, fish, seafood, dairy, meats. So definitely veganism would be a solution because when we're looking at that, over half of it is just meat consumption.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's also just like the land that it takes to produce meats. When a lot of times, sometimes people they kind of get kind of wrapped up in they get wrapped up in the taste of food, and they don't really kind of look at the lineage of like how that food got on their plate. And it's not just meat; it's the whole process. So it's like where are these cattle living? Where are these swine living? Where's the sheep and goats and all these other animals living? They're living in a big part. They're living in a lot of land. So these animals, although their lives are cut pretty short, they do kind of they emit a lot of gases and a lot of different stuff in that area, which does, affect our atmosphere. And also just like the amount of animals that there are, we are like having, billions of animals on this planet that are just for the animal industry. And so I mean, these animals are being mass produced, so therefore they emit a lot of negative things to our environment. Same thing with dairy. There's a lot of dairy cattle and they emit the exact same thing. And as we see, like you were saying, like with the fruits and vegetables, it's very small because with crops, there isn't much that goes into them, and they're very restorable. So they don't take as much they just don't take as much as a lot of these different animals within the animal industry do.
Yeah, definitely. Great points. Does anybody else have any other ideas, opinions for this slide? Oh, cool. Cool, Hope. That's awesome. Okay, so we can move on to the next slide. If I can find the arrow. Okay, here. So if we mentioned consuming less meat or going vegan for a lot of potential options, and do you think this is a realistic and sustainable goal for everyone? I have some like ideas over there, like to get the conversation started. Oops, right here. If any of you guys have any ideas, everything's up for grabs, though, I guess.
I definitely think it can be, because one thing I like to stress when people figure out I'm vegan or have comments about me being vegan is that being vegan can be as cheap, as expensive, as healthy, as junk foody, is that a word? As unhealthy, that's the right word, as unhealthy or as healthy as you want it to be. And so you could eat a whole foods plant-based diet, or you could eat a lot of Beyond Burgers, Impossible Meat, and more processed foods. So I feel like some people are like, oh, well, I just don't like vegetables. Well, for me, I have issues with a lot of vegetable textures, but I go with the ones I can handle, and with fruit, and then a lot of fruit and grains, that kind of stuff. And so I feel like it is a good solution, because even if you don't like a specific vegetable, there are so many fruits and vegetables, there are so many options. I mean, it's not like we don't have the options. And so it's not about cost or health, because you can make it as cheap or as affordable as you want. Because for me, my parents didn't approve of me going vegan at first, and so they've been giving me $25 a week for my food for the entire week. And so that was just like one example of how I'm able to you still be vegan, but also not spend a lot of money, which is one stereotype of veganism. And so it's a lot. I like to emphasize when we talk about, is it realistic for everyone, is that it can be cheap. It is cheap. It can be as expensive. It can be as healthy or as unhealthy as you want it to be.
That's awesome and really well worded. Does anyone have any other ideas or like thoughts on going vegan, I guess?
I would love to make a comment on the second little question that you have on here. So it says veganism, like, is it fake? Or, like a lot of people, they'll go vegan and then the next month they're like, it just wasn't for me. Well, like with this, along the lines of like the entire topic that you have with climate change, animal agriculture is the top, if like not the top 3 reasons for climate change. And so if people truly want to see a difference, if they, kind of want to spark up that environmentalist side of them, I do think that veganism is one of the best ways to help the environment. And one way to just kind of stick in that path is just to really see through the eyes of the victim. A lot of these animals, they really do not have a great life by any means. They're really just seen as a commodity and as a product. And a lot of these farmers, they may say, well, I love my cattle, I love my dairy, I love my pigs and my horses and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, they're just trying to see what money they can get out of them. And when you kind of look at it from the bigger picture, here we are, a lot of people were supporting a lot of these industries that are really just in it for the money. They don't care about our environment. They don't care about, the next generations ahead. And that is really beginning to show when we're having all these devastating issues like forest fires and deforestation. And a lot of them are kind of like, oh, I'm not going to pay money to, fix that. So I think that just, really looking in the eyes of a lot of these animals that are, facing such barbaric treatment, and realizing that there is an alternative way, and realizing that it's not the most expensive thing by any means, and that it can be a very simple thing. I've been doing it for almost 2 years, and I think that if change really wants to be done, or if people really want to see a difference in the world, then that can be done. And if you just really care, then you probably won't be going back.
I agree with what she said about if you really care, you just won't be going back. So there are so many reasons to go vegan, but of course today we're talking about climate change, and that kind of stuff is being one. And that is, I mean, for the animals, it's the same way. If you care, you're not going back. But when you're going vegan, you're also caring about the environment in a similar way. I wanted to add to the third point, Meatless Mondays are definitely not like a save all. It would definitely be better if people could be meatless every day. But I feel like for a lot of people, that is definitely a great step, because I'm one of the people who really stresses that it's not really very reasonable to go vegan overnight. You have to be able to transition. And so I feel like if we could get people to do Meatless Mondays, then they can start to see, this isn't that hard. The food I ate all day wasn't gross. I didn't eat salads all day. I didn't eat grass. Like, if we start doing little things like that, I think it'll help people to see that it's not as difficult, because if we come at them all at once with everything, it's going to be a little bit harder for them to understand. But if we explain how effective even just not eating meat one day of the week is, then they might start thinking, whoa, that's what I'm doing with one day. What if I didn't eat meat every day? So I feel like it is sort of more realistic, like your question says, but I definitely think I wouldn't be like a solution. It would just be like a step in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely. That leads us to our next question. Oh, wait. Okay. So I have two sources. They're pretty quick. This is one is a 10-second clip, and this one is a YouTube comment that I found that actually had a very appealing argument about Meatless Mondays. So to go a little bit more in depth with them, like this source like represents a justification for Meatless Mondays, and the other one is like showing the hypocrisy that maybe a Meatless Monday chooses. So if you guys want to look this over, or if you want to skim it, there's usually like this little point over here. These lines, they have a little bit of the main idea, I guess. So I'll put it up here for a minute or two.
I definitely like that post. And it's kind of what I was saying a little bit ago about the Meatless Mondays, was that it is more reasonable for some people to know that they're able. And I think it was a TikTok about someone who said that they couldn't give up sushi if they went vegan. And so they came to a solution after talking to a vegan activist that they were just going to have sushi once a month. And so I feel like, yeah, that once a month could be, better if it wasn't even there. But I definitely agree with what this post was saying about how I was saying Meatless Mondays are a bit more realistic to help people start to get closer and closer. And I do like the point about knowing that you only have 4 more days until you can eat it again. Because for people who have been eating meat their whole life, and especially, dairy is addicting, it's a lot easier for them to know. So I definitely kind of understand what they're saying, and I agree that small steps are important. So it's a lot of the same things I was saying about Meatless Monday.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. I'm gonna pull up the next source that we have on here. Okay, right here. Okay, perfect. This is a 10-second clip. This is what I found. It's satire. Yeah. So it's basically an anti-meatless Monday clip. So if you guys are interested in seeing it, I'll play it here. I just chose a small snippet, but here.
The name says it all. Nothing in the face, Monday to Friday. On the weekend, your choice. Simple.
Yeah, so it's just like a quick little clip that it shows a little bit of the weirdness in the decisions, I guess. So for the
name says
right here. So the next point that I have is we discussed a little bit with Meatless Mondays or part-time vegetarianism and veganism. So there's like ethical considerations, sustainability, the carbon footprint, and the commitments and like impacts on animal agriculture. But do you guys think like specifically point 3, like there's a difference in the carbon footprints with like consuming. Of course, there's going to be like a difference, but do you think it's like trivial between the two, like expenditures, if that makes any sense?
I don't think it's that trivial if I understand the question right. Because when you look at the stats, I don't know them off the top of my head, but I have seen the stats of like how much water and how much land goes into one beef burger versus one Beyond or veggie based burger. And so I don't think it's too trivial, because I think it's like choosing one Beyond burger over one beef burger would be like not showering for 6 months. You'd be saving like that amount of water. Don't quote me on those stats, but that's my point, is that I don't think it's that trivial, because even though it would be awesome if everybody was vegan, it's not going to be completely realistic because people are so set in their ways. But I don't think it's trivial, because we're still saving, that 6 months worth of not showering. That's a lot of water. And so not only just the carbon footprint the animals leave to make the beef burger, but then we're also saving the water, saving everything in addition. So I don't think it's trivial. Yeah, it's not as good as being completely vegan, but at the same time, I feel like every little thing somewhat matters.
Yeah, that's really well put. Thanks for sharing. We're going to go into our next point on the thing. Hopefully I can find it over here. Okay, perfect. So, do you think veganism is like privilege in a sense, or do you like? I know a lot of us, when we initially went into like veganism or like more plant-based diets, we weren't like born into this, I guess, and found it on our own. But do you think, through personal examples, how would you really compare it with like your Omni diet, for example?
I saw a post and it really got to me, because they were like, yeah, you say veganism's expensive, but it's only expensive if you're buying alternatives to dairy and that kind of stuff. And that's what I was saying earlier, sorry, because it can be a privilege or it cannot be, because fruits and vegetables, unless you live in a food desert, are, fairly affordable. You can get a bag of potatoes fairly cheap. So I feel like it isn't really a privilege, except for in places where you're living in a food desert. You need to get the food that you can. But definitely fruits and vegetables are pretty affordable compared to the stuff that you would eat on an Omni diet.
I
Yeah, I think it's a privilege. Sorry, you can go.
Please go ahead. Yeah, I would love to hear what you have to say. Go.
Sorry. Yeah, I do think it's a privilege, because like McDonald's, like you can get like an entire meal for like $1, but like if you go to like Whole Foods and get like a box of strawberries, it's like $5. So I do think it is a privilege. It's very expensive, and yeah, and not everybody can afford to do it. So I do think it is a privilege. Yeah, there you go.
I feel like it's also how you would use that box of strawberries, because the box of strawberries may be $5, but if you're paying $5 for a container of strawberries, I bet it's a pretty large amount of strawberries. And if you are going to McDonald's, like she said, you're only getting one meal for that price versus if you're getting strawberries. I think the idea of people thinking veganism as a privilege is when people think that you constantly need to buy alternatives to meat and dairy, because like I said, fruits and vegetables are not that expensive. Her analogy does make sense. However, it's one meal. I don't think many people are going to eat a whole container of strawberries as a meal. So the analogy is there, but I feel like veganism is only ever seen as a privilege because people tend to feel the need to buy a lot of alternatives. But I don't really think it's a privilege if you don't live in a food desert. I feel like there's a few cases where it would be a privilege, but I mean, strawberry, you're not going to eat a whole container of strawberries for a meal versus a McDonald's meal.
Yeah, I personally think that veganism is not a privilege. I think it's actually the opposite. If you go all the way back in time, since like, I guess feudalism, it's always been individuals who are able to afford the meats and the cheeses and like the farm animals. Those are the ones that are, you know, seen as well off. And the individuals who couldn't afford that, they were the ones who were, you know, eating the grains and the rices and any, you know, like vegetable that they could find, and fruit if they were lucky. So I think that it's not a privilege at all. Even, you know, in the 21st century, anything that has pretty much any tie to animal products is usually more expensive. When we look at, you know, designer bags, it's usually because they're made of like the nice fancy leathers. If we look at seafood, sometimes the lobsters and the mussels and, you know, the crabs, those are usually way more expensive. A lot of cheeses like the brie cheese and a lot of those other expensive cheeses, those are, you know, way more expensive than a lot of vegan foods. So I think it's really just kind of looking at it like with an open mind and kind of, you know, having just kind of being realistic with the food. I know like the Beyond Burger, it's gonna be like, that's like, so like the Beyond Burger and like the Impossible meat, kind of think of those as like the finest vegan foods that we have, you know. And then, you know, if you like wanted to get like a really nice, you know, cut of, you know, beef or like for your burger or something, that's going to be way more expensive than like a Beyond Burger, like Impossible Burger. For our vegan cheeses, we have like Daya and Miyokos. Those are like some of our, you know, finest vegan cheeses that we have. And then we, you know, look over like some of the non-vegan cheeses, those are going to be way more expensive than some of our finest, you know, cheeses that we have. And then that's just alternatives. And when we look at whole foods like legumes and nuts and berries and rice and grains, those are going to be way less expensive than, you know, any high-end food. So, or non-vegan beef or cheese.
I agree with Kennedy. That was really well put. I like the way she put that. That's pretty much what I was trying to say. I was just rambling on and wasn't putting the right words, but that's exactly what I was saying was if you're not focusing on alternatives, it's definitely a lot of grains. And like she said about how all that kind of stuff, and that's a good point, comparing it back to like the old times when you're exactly right. The meat and dairy were the more expensive products. The only reason I think people think of veganism as a privilege is because now in 2021, we have so many alternatives that are expensive. But if you looked at just veganism itself without any alternatives, you're looking at, you know, your greens and your veggies and your fruits, which is going to be so much cheaper than the meat and dairy.
Yeah, and just to add
I definitely agree with what you said.
If it wasn't for like the government, you know, helping out a lot of these farmers, like with tax subsidies and stuff, no one truly will be able to afford a lot of these meats that, you know, we can go to McDonald's and, you know, spend $5 for. It will be a lot more expensive because meat takes a lot of money to produce. You were talking about the water that it takes to produce, like the liters of water that it takes to produce this meat. It's very expensive. So if it wasn't for the government stepping in and giving a lot of these monies to these farmers to support them, then it would be kind of virtually impossible for like the average family to pay for a lot of these non-vegan foods.
Yeah, that's so true. Thank you so much, everyone. We have one more point, I believe, on here. Okay, we discussed this one a little bit, so we can go into the final point. So how does a teenage or college experience impact what can or what is not sustainable? Like, for example, school accommodations, the social isolation aspect, the has zero waste taken convenience from you, or like veganism, and do you think it's like an all or nothing solution?
I don't think it's all or nothing, especially as a teenager or a young college student. You know, college students, teenagers don't have a crazy amount of money, and sometimes zero waste items are a little bit more expensive. So I definitely don't think it's all or nothing. I feel like every little thing helps. Like if you, like I said about choosing not to get a straw instead, and especially as a teenager or young in college, I feel like it would definitely be simple things like recycling, picking up trash. I definitely don't think it would be like not throwing away anything at all, because that's a little bit more unrealistic. And so I definitely don't think it's too realistic, but it can be done.
Yeah, that's cool. Does anybody else have any other opinions?
Yeah, like my sister was like vegetarian, but then she like went to college and it changed because there were like less options and none of her friends were vegetarian. So I do think it can be a little bit difficult, but definitely don't think it's like an all or nothing situation either.
I think it would also help if schools were more willing to offer the options, because a lot of times they're just like, well, we have salad, we can just not put cheese on the salad. They don't really offer like a real option. So for teenage and college experiences, I think it would help to have more options available to Z teenage or college student, so that they didn't have to go out of their way to get the vegan food or get a zero waste item. Kind of like what she was saying about her, I think she said her sister, because she didn't have the option of a vegan option.
Yeah, I feel like for the like lack of vegan friends part, that's definitely me right now, but it's been really kind of sweet. Like sometimes I'll bring like an alternative ice cream or whatever, and everyone's like, whoa, this is better than the ice cream I used to have. Or like my mom like will sometimes say she prefers the vegan butters, or like the Impossible Burger cooks quicker and like you don't have to worry about getting sick if you undercook it and stuff.
It tastes better too.
Yes. And I just feel like even though it's like a lonely experience, like you have like a lot of little wins when you can kind of like share a meal that like doesn't suck. Or like I feel like I've been going to school in Boston and it's slowly becoming like more veganized, and I feel like anytime I purchase a vegetable, I'm like, oh yes, activism. Like it's just like, even though it's like a little hard right now, like I feel like it's getting better and it's getting easier.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you everybody who joined us. Right before we go, I was wondering if we could get like a big group picture possible. So I'm just gonna do like a screenshot. I'll give you guys like a countdown if possible. So if this isn't of interest for you, you don't have to do it. We see the names and stuff, so either works perfectly. So I'm gonna start the countdown in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Smile. Awesome. So thank you everyone who joined us. I am so grateful to see everybody here. And I'm really glad that this could be of use for a lot of people. So I hope everybody has a great day, and thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Good luck on your project.
Thank you. Bye.